If you've ever trusted someone so completely that you couldn't even imagine them lying to you, then you'll understand how it felt the day everything vanished. I was standing in my late father's office, the smell of old books and cedar still lingering, when my stepmother Denise told me my entire inheritance, $850,000, was gone. It was an investment, she said calmly, as if she were talking about grocery money. Crypto. The market crashed. It's all gone. I remember staring at her, trying to make sense of it. Gone. My father's company shares, his savings, the money he worked his whole life for. Just gone overnight. I wanted to believe her. After all, she was the woman who helped take care of Dad when he got sick. She cooked his meals, drove him to appointments. She was supposed to be family. But something about her expression didn't sit right with me. Her face was too calm, her voice too smooth, like she had rehearsed this story. I tried to ask questions, but she brushed me off, saying she had to speak to the bank. That was the last real conversation we had. Within a week, I was kicked out of the house my father built. She said it was too painful to have me around. I didn't even have time to grab everything I owned. Just a duffel bag, some clothes, and Dad's old watch. The house I grew up in, the home filled with memories, was locked behind me, and I was suddenly just no one. That's when the spiral started. I slept in my old truck, parked behind the diner where I used to work part-time during college. Every morning I'd stare at the sunrise through the windshield and wonder how I went from being a college graduate with a future to a man scraping for tips and surviving on coffee refills. Every night, as I fell asleep to the sound of traffic, one thought burned in my chest. How could she do this to me? I didn't know it yet, but Denise's story wasn't just a lie. It was an entire web, one she'd spun long before my father even passed away. And soon, I'd pull the first thread that would unravel everything she built. Life in that old pickup truck became my reality. I parked near the edge of town, behind the diner where the manager, Gus, let me work extra shifts. He didn't know I was sleeping out back. Or maybe he did and didn't want to embarrass me by mentioning it. Every night I'd wipe the fog from the windows, stare up at the cracked ceiling, and whisper to my dad. You wouldn't have let this happen, right? It became my ritual. A way to hold on to him. Denise never called. The woman who used to text me daily while Dad was alive had disappeared completely. I tried calling the lawyer who handled Dad's will, but every time I did, Denise somehow found out. I got one cold text from her: "Stop digging, Alex. It won't change anything." Those words haunted me. Why was she so defensive? If it really was a failed investment, why not show me the proof? Months passed. My clothes smelled like coffee and rain. I lost weight. But beneath the exhaustion, something else began to grow. Quiet, stubborn anger. Then one night, I overheard something that changed everything. Two men sat in the booth near where I was cleaning. They were talking about a woman named Denise who'd bought a new vacation house in Florida. All cash. One said, laughing, "She must have hit the crypto jackpot." Crypto jackpot. That was it. The truth had a way of slipping out in whispers, and that night, I realized what she'd done. She didn't lose my inheritance. She stole it. After that night, everything changed. I stopped feeling sorry for myself and started paying attention. I didn't have much, no lawyer, no savings, but I had curiosity, and that turned into my greatest weapon. I started digging quietly. I spent nights at the library using their free computers, looking up property records, tracing transactions, anything I could find. It took weeks, but I finally found something. A real estate purchase made under a new LLC. The owner's name wasn't Denise, but the business address matched her old financial advisor's office. The property, a beachfront house in Naples. That was the moment I knew. She hadn't invested the money. She'd laundered it. Used fake paperwork, hidden behind shell companies. I couldn't confront her yet, not until I had proof. But I was running on fumes, sleeping 2 hours a night, surviving on diner leftovers. Then one morning, everything took a turn I couldn't have scripted better myself. I was wiping tables when the bell above the diner door rang, and in walked a man I hadn't seen in years, my Uncle Rick, my father's younger brother. He looked around, spotted me, and froze. "Alex," he said, his voice breaking. "What the hell are you doing here?" And right there, in that tiny diner, surrounded by strangers sipping coffee, my life started to change again. Rick and I sat in a booth, my heart pounding as I told him everything, from the crypto lie to the nights in the truck. He listened without interrupting, his expression darkening by the second. When I finished, he didn't speak for a long time. Then he said quietly, "She did the same thing to me once. I just didn't think she'd go this far." Turns out, Denise had a history. She had been managing parts of my father's finances years before they married, convincing him she could handle the numbers. But after Dad's death, she moved everything into her name using state restructuring as an excuse. Rick leaned forward. "You said crypto." "Yeah." He smiled coldly. "Then we have her. Every transfer leaves a trail. We just need someone who knows how to read it." Over the next few weeks, Rick introduced me to one of his friends, a forensic accountant named Jenna. Together, we started digging deeper. And what we found made my blood run cold. Denise hadn't just taken my inheritance. She had drained Dad's retirement, sold company shares illegally, and even used his signature on documents after his death. I wanted to storm her house, scream the truth into her face. But Rick stopped me. "You want justice, not noise," he said. "We'll do this the smart way." That night, as I lay in the truck staring at the ceiling, I realized something. For the first time in months, I wasn't broken. I had purpose again. And soon, Denise would learn what it felt like to lose everything she'd built on lies. We built the trap slowly. Jenna drafted fake inquiries about Denise's real estate purchases, pretending to be from the IRS. Meanwhile, Rick contacted a friend in law enforcement to quietly flag any unusual financial activities. The goal wasn't to scare her, it was to make her act. And she did. Within days, her attorney transferred assets between 2 more shell companies, trying to hide them before anyone could look closer. But in doing so, she left a perfect paper trail. I watched the chaos unfold from a distance, keeping silent. The same woman who once told me to stop digging was now digging her own grave. But then, something unexpected happened. Denise showed up at the diner. I was wiping the counter when she walked in, perfectly dressed, her smile sharp as ever. "You've been busy," she said quietly. "Do you really think you can destroy me?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch. She leaned closer. "You're your father's son, always so righteous. But the world doesn't reward good people, Alex. It rewards survivors." I smiled, calm but cold. "Then you should have survived smarter." She left in silence, but I could tell. She knew something was coming. The next few weeks were chaos. Federal investigators moved in quietly, seizing accounts tied to the fake LLCs. Denise's financial advisor was arrested first. Her name came up again and again in depositions, each one painting her guilt clearer. I watched it all unfold from the shadows. She had no idea that the same boy she'd thrown into the streets was the one feeding information to the people who finally brought her down. When the news broke, I was sitting in my truck again, sipping coffee. The headline read, "Local woman accused of financial fraud in multi-million-dollar estate scheme." I laughed for the first time in months. Not out of joy but relief. It was over. Well, almost. A few days later I got a letter, hand-delivered, from her lawyer. Denise had left town. No charges yet, but she was under investigation. And the last line of the letter: "You may think you've won, but this isn't over." I folded it slowly, smiled to myself, and whispered, "It's over when I say it is." Months later, I was living in a small apartment near the diner, working part-time but saving every penny. Rick helped me reopen my father's case, and eventually, the court granted me partial restitution from Denise's seized assets. It wasn't all 50,000, but it was enough to rebuild, enough to breathe again. One evening, while cleaning out the last of my old things, I found Dad's journal, one I hadn't read before. Inside, he'd written a note addressed to me. "Alex, never let greed or betrayal define who you become. Let it sharpen you, not break you." I sat there, holding that note, realizing how far I'd come. The truck, the hunger, the humiliation. It had all built the version of me that Denise could never destroy. Looking back now, I understand something my father always said. Money shows who people are, not who they want to be. Denise showed her truth the moment she saw an opportunity to take. But I learned mine, not when I lost everything, but when I decided to stand back up. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just living well. Rebuilding what they thought they took from you, and letting their downfall speak for itself. I don't live in a truck anymore. I drive past that diner every morning, and every time I see the sunrise through the windshield, I remember the boy who refused to stay broken, and I smile, because the story Denise tried to control, I rewrote the ending myself.